Tonight, attack in the west, even as the Russian military builds up forces in the east of Ukraine.
We will fight absolutely till the end, till the win in this war.
Ukrainian defenders vow to fight on. Plus, inflation nation, why high prices are here to stay. Coping with failures of church leadership.
This is not Christ, that he is better, that he is greater.
And the blockbuster story of an amateur boxer turned priest.
Your son is about to make a huge mistake.
I'm going to be a priest.
For Halloween.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Never give up. That is the vow from Ukrainian forces as Russia renews its assault on war-torn Ukraine. Good evening in Washington. I'm Jenna Browder. Tonight, surrender or be eliminated. That is the ultimatum from Russia to Ukraine in a critical battle for the port city of Mariupol, the city that's been under siege for nearly 7 weeks now and may be on the brink of falling. CBN's Tara Mergener has our top story.
Jenna, despite grueling conditions, Ukraine is vowing not to give up, saying what happens in the port city could influence the entire war.
Fallout from another round of deadly airstrikes. Russia is demanding surrender from Ukrainians still holding their ground in Mariupol.
We will fight absolutely till the end, till the win in this war.
Vladimir Putin's forces appear closer than ever to claiming the port city as supplies and ammo dwindle for Ukrainian defenders. The country is weary and war-torn, with thousands trapped without food and water.
She says, we've already lost everything. Our whole apartment burned down, all things burned down. We don't have anything. If we cry, nothing will change.
Air raid sirens ring out across East Ukraine, and firefighters in Kharkiv fight flames from new Russian shelling. European bodies remain in the open as families gather to grieve and bury their loved ones. President Zelensky has thanked the U.S. for its promise to send another $800 million, but says more is needed given the situation. The U.S. has committed nearly $2.6 billion so far.
Russia, more than just launching an invasion, more than just launching a war, is undertaking a campaign of terror, a campaign of brutality, a campaign of despicable aggression against the people of Ukraine.
Any day now, Russia's major escalation in the east is expected to begin. The White House says it's now considering sending an administration official to the capital city of Kyiv.
And Zelensky says in the past few days, 18 civilians have been killed and many more people injured in these attacks, Jenna.
All right, Tara Mergener for us. Thank you so much, Tara. Well, back here at home, a major reversal on the mask mandate for airplanes. A federal judge in Florida striking down the CDC's travel requirement. The new ruling voids the national mask mandate that was recently extended by the CDC. The requirement to wear face coverings on airplanes was set to expire today until health officials seeking more time to study COVID's BA.2 Omicron subvariant extended the rule until May 3rd. The judge ruling health officials exceeded their authority and did not follow proper rulemaking. On the economy, it looks more and more like the record-breaking inflation gripping the nation is here to stay. Gas, food, and consumer prices soaring with no apparent end in sight. Some economists say the days of cheap goods and cheaper services may be long gone. Before COVID-19, overall inflation ran at or near the Federal Reserve target of 2%. But now, according to Axios, supply bottlenecks, worker shortages, and spiking prices are changing the inflation status quo. And today is the deadline for filing federal taxes. The IRS expected to receive tens of millions of last-minute filings electronically. One expert telling the Associated Press, if you haven't filed yet, you're better off filing an extension rather than having to amend your taxes later on. And with that, let's bring in Nathan Gonzalez, editor and publisher of Inside Elections. Nathan, as always, great to have you on the show tonight. Let's start with inflation. So Republicans, they are really taking hold of it as a major flashpoint heading into the November elections. Axios reporting Republicans are talking about it about 6 times as much as Democrats. Your thoughts on that, and if you think it's a winning strategy?
Well, it's absolutely the right political message for Republicans. Not only is it one of the, if not the top issue, then the top 2 issue in terms of what voters care about, but it's also one of the issues where President Joe Biden fares the worst on his job approval rating, where more voters disapprove of the job that he's doing on handling inflation versus other issues. And it's not just with Republicans. Republicans don't believe Biden's doing a good job, but also independents, by a ratio of about 2 to 1, believe that the president could be doing more to bring down or to solve the inflation crisis. And that's good for Republicans and bad for Democrats heading into the midterms, because Democrats are in control of the White House. They're in control of Congress, so they're being held more responsible for the problems that the country is facing, including inflation.
On COVID and the federal judge knocking down the mask mandate on airplanes and public transportation today, how big of a blow is this to the Biden administration?
Well, it does. On one hand, it is a mixed message, although this isn't coming from the White House. This is coming from the federal judge and not something that the White House specifically wanted. But it does create some uncertainty. Now, coronavirus and handling coronavirus is something that a majority of voters believe that Biden is doing a good job on, but a small number of voters prioritize it, or a small number of voters view that as a top issue. A lot of the country has moved on. So when you get news like this that is mixed, I think it could potentially hurt President Biden and Democrats on an issue where he does have the more trust with the American people than he does on other issues.
Yeah. Does this add, the judge and this strike down of the mask mandate, does this add fuel to the criticism that the White House is inconsistent on COVID? I think of another example is, Title 42 down on the southern border that's set to expire. Your thoughts on that, Nathan?
Well, with any issue, it hits everyone's ears differently. Republicans are going to be a critic of President Biden and the White House kind of no matter what they do. Democrats have largely rallied behind the president, but it's those voters in the middle that matter in particular. And right now, it probably doesn't help with independent voters to have a mixed message when it comes to handling coronavirus. But Biden and the administration need to invoke more trust from the American people on inflation and the economy. Maybe those problems don't get solved, but at least have those voters in the middle believe that the country is headed in the right direction in solving those problems. And right now, enough voters are not feeling that.
Just about 30 seconds left here, but I want to get your thoughts. President's latest approval rating, new astounding low, 33%, according to Quinnipiac. Is this rock bottom for Biden?
Well, that poll is lower than other polls. I mean, President Biden's job approval rating has not been good. I mean, the good news for Biden is that his approval rating has been fairly consistent. It hasn't really moved dramatically up or down. But the bad news is that it's not in a good position. On average, he's at about 42% approval and 52 or 53% disapproval. And that's not the place that the Democratic Party wants to be heading into November.
All right, Nathan Gonzalez with Inside Elections. It's always good to see you. Thank you, Nathan.
Thanks, Jenna.
And coming up, Hillsong scandal, how a major church is coping with leadership loss and crisis.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
what starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back. Well, plagued by leadership scandals and the loss of American churches, Hillsong has taken a string of hits this year. Many are wondering what's next and how the Lord will work in this crisis. Senior National Affairs correspondent Heather Sells has the story.
In recent weeks, Hillsong has lost its founder and global leader, many of its American church campuses, and its reputation as a global ministry leader that many churches have sought to emulate.
We see churches all over the world mimicking Hillsong style and saying, we want some of what they have.
Author Caitlin Beatty has long followed Hillsong's rise and style. Starting almost 40 years ago as a tiny Australian church, it has spread to 5 continents with churches in 30 countries, plus a powerhouse music ministry.
What a beautiful name it is.
They understand that a lot of us, especially young people, respond to great music, to beautiful light design, to a sense that you can go into a church and it feels more like a nightclub.
Dr. Corney Becker, Dean of the Regent School of Divinity, says the combination of cultural savvy, extraordinary worship, and gospel presentation all played a key role.
The clarity of the gospel that they have proclaimed. Very easy for people to understand, easy to follow.
Recently, however, Hillsong has struggled. In 2020, it fired New York City pastor Carl Lentz, who later confessed to marital infidelity. The church promised an investigation for a, quote, fresh start. Then this year,
I've agreed to step aside from all ministry responsibilities.
Founder Brian Houston stepped down. First came charges that he concealed evidence regarding his father's child sex offenses, and more recently, he admitted inappropriate behavior with women and problems with alcohol. In March, Hillsong's Phoenix pastor left.
I never thought I would be standing here today.
Taking with him churches in Las Vegas and Tucson. Other branches in Kansas City and Atlanta have separated from the overall organization.
People don't come to church for scandal. They come to church to have a safe place.
The question now, what can be learned from Hillsong's rise and fall?
I think it's a lesson for any Christian ministry to be wary of building ministries or churches' success around the charisma of one particular person.
I'm deeply concerned that because this is played out on television in the public sphere, that the message of redemption is lost.
Becker says there's no question abuse victims must be prioritized and that pastors who fail must step down. He also wants a watching world to see grace for those who've done wrong and hear an apology.
For those that are watching the public failures of Christian leaders, I want to say to them that we are sorry. I want to say to them, when we fail in ways like this, we want to let you know that this is not Christ, that He is better, that He is greater.
Heather Sells, CBN News.
And Joining us now is Justin Giboney, president of the AND campaign. Justin, welcome. Great to have you join us this evening. So, of course, this is not the first time we've seen a ministry fall from grace. What should be the response of Christians when leadership fails morally?
I think anytime we see leadership in a body, there should be heartbreak. It is heartbreaking to see it happen. We know that it leads to church hurt. It leads to all kinds of things. And we also know that people just don't trust institutions anymore. And so, you know, the church can simply blame that on a kind of insurgence of an irreverent progressivism, or we can take responsibility for it. We can set up accountability, making sure that we surround our leaders with structures of accountability. It's very important because we as a church have a responsibility to protect people from abuses of power. And this is what we see too many times. Like I said earlier, we can protect people. We also have to make sure that we're protecting the and trying to heal.
Yeah. I think we're breaking up a little bit, but Justin, if you can hear me, you mentioned the structures of accountability for leadership and having those in place. You know, what might that look like?
Well, it has to be either a board, you know, you have boards of elders, things of that nature. We're not always talking about pastors. So sometimes you're just talking about official structures within your governance to make sure that we don't leave leaders to their own devices, to make sure we get their best, to make sure that they're encouraged, they're supported, but at the same time, if they do something that falls below biblical standards, that they are held accountable for that. So that can come in many different ways, but it is a matter of governance.
Yeah. You know, on the issue of trust, I really think something like this that we saw with Hillsong, it really does break down a level of trust for people inside the church, whether they go to that church or are part of that community, or for people on the outside looking in who see this and say, yeah, no thanks, I don't want to be a part of that. Talk to that a little bit about how this can be so damaging for the larger church body as a whole, the church as a whole.
Yeah, well, I think it goes straight to the church's credibility. And tell people that that we know the way because we know Jesus Christ, that we're saying a better way to live. They're going to expect us, they're going to expect to see it in how we live in our everyday lives. And so when you see these failures, people are going to say, well, maybe this isn't what you said. And so we have to be sure that, again, we're doing everything we can to maintain a level of credibility. The world's not going to always love us, so that's not the same thing as having agreement. But it is to say that we're transparent and that we have a level of integrity, which is very important.
Yeah. All right, Justin Giboney of the AND campaign, thank you so much. Great to have you on tonight.
Thanks for having me.
And when we come back, how a futile search for money and fame led one man to the priesthood as the story of Father Stu hits the silver screen.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
And ministering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to cbnnewschannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life life to the fullest. Life in your family, life in your finances, life in your body, mind, and spirit, life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Father Stuart Long, he was an amateur boxer whose failing career forced him to move to Los Angeles in search of money and fame in the film industry. But on the winding journey, he faced tragedy and found faith. Now Father Stu is hitting the silver screen, earning $8 million at the box office in the first 5 days, coming in 5th place at the movies this Easter weekend after opening on Good Friday. Father Stu stars Mark Wahlberg, and we'd like to warn you, it is rated R for its language, but the story is truly inspiring. CBN's Ephraim Graham sat down with Mark Wahlberg to bring you his passionate and deeply personal take on the story.
Your son is about to make a huge mistake.
I'm going to be a priest.
For Halloween.
So, Mark, a funny thing happens at dinner with your priest. You get introduced to the story of Father Stu. What do you remember most about that introduction?
I don't know. I was trying to figure out how do you compare that? It's like getting advice you think is from a doctor from a guy who is a shoe salesman. It just didn't make much sense. It sounded like a funny story, but something finally hit me and it resonated with me. And I had been looking for a long time to do more. Because I know, I've been so blessed and so fortunate. It's not to forget about where I came from. It's to utilize those talents and gifts for God's greater use and purpose. And so when it hit me, I was like, you know what? This is what I got to do. And what better than to find a way to utilize my best talents and attributes and what I do best in my primary business, and to find a story that would bring people closer to God or to faith or to each other.
Indeed. We're talking about a tough childhood, a broken family, multiple professional and disastrous motorcycle accident, deadly health diagnosis. How does this man still arrive at a new sense of purpose in light of all that he went through?
It's amazing. It really will challenge all of us and hopefully inspire all of us to be able to deal with all of the difficulty and adversity that we face. He handled it with such dignity and such grace. And he really felt like it was a gift from God to bring him closer to God through his suffering, which it's a remarkable way of looking at things. But in this day and age that we live, we all have been going through it and we all have suffered. We've lost people that we love. We've seen people lose their livelihoods and businesses and everything else. It's remarkable how timely this message is. It's certainly not my doing. I would like to take credit for it, but we know that there are powers at work that are well beyond our understanding.
I know you feel it's important that people make time to see this particular film in the theater. Yeah. Why do you think that's important?
It's a theatrical experience. You need to see it and feel it with people next to you. It's the kind of thing too, where you're laughing, you're crying, you're all kind of together. And we're reminded that we do need to be together. We need things that are going to bring us closer together and not separate us, or, everybody's kind of at home. They got the remote, they pause it, I'll watch the rest later, or they kind of go take a phone call. There's so much to be missed. And this is kind of an experience that I think when people walk out, they are on an emotional high, but they also feel a bit challenged themselves just to do a little bit more and to be a little bit better.
I can't help but to recognize the physical transformation that we watch you go through. I mean, I want to say you packed on 30 pounds for this role. How difficult was that? And why did you think that was important?
It was miserable. And it was important because, and this is very important. I get it. I've done it a bunch of times, actors talking about their physical transformations for the part. Stu transformed so much physically and spiritually. Everything about him was predicated on his physical prowess until he came down with this rare disease. And then as his body started to deteriorate, his spirituality soared. So you had to really kind of see that and feel that. And I've seen that happen to my dad and to many people that I was close to, my mom, and just to see that and make sure that people felt that it was happening. And that it was real. I just wanted to make it as real as possible.
I know you had the opportunity to speak to his dad in preparation for this. What were those conversations like?
Very enlightening. and also very funny. It is one of those things where sharing those little anecdotes and understanding, a parent's point of view, to have lost not one child, but two children, it's devastating. My mom had to bury my two oldest sisters before she passed, and I know she was never the same. But to see how Bill handled it and the making of the movie, and how proud he is and knows that Stu is still at work, and this is all Stu's doing, that this movie's being made, that I'm out here kind of promoting his messaging, echoing that to other people. He gets a big kick out of it. He's got a smile on his face, and he didn't always. But Stu's secret mission was to get his parents together, to get them sober, and to have them both baptized. And he was able to do all that before he passed.
Beautiful redemption for them all. Thank you.
Yes.
Beautiful story. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Great interview. Well, still ahead, it's Easter egg roll time at the White House. This year's festivities next.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
And finally tonight, after a 2-year hiatus, the White House Easter egg roll is back. And the President and First Lady taking their first crack at the tradition today. Dr. Jill Biden, who's a teacher herself, picked this year's theme, Egg-ucation. The White House transformed the South Lawn into a school community. Over 30,000 visitors taking part in egg races, hunts, and decorating. Per tradition, the main draw is the egg hunt and the egg roll. Children using wooden spoons to roll colorful eggs across the lawn, marking the 142nd event of its kind. And it's a chilly day, chilly, wet day here in Washington, D.C., but it looks like they got maybe a couple windows of some nicer, drier weather, so that's good to see. And that's going to do it for Faith Nation tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.